Good morning and welcome in, everyone. Before we get into this morning's update, I want to go over an overview of what I see happening this morning throughout the cryptocurrency market. I cannot do a live this morning. I have a few things going on. It's my niece's birthday. However, I'm not sure we're going to find our way there because my son's been congested. He's got a little bit of a raspy cough, so I don't really want to bring him outside for a birthday party when it's 50 degrees out or 48 degrees after being 85 yesterday. So we may end up staying home. I still wanted to do an update this morning. I got to call my dad after and talk to my sister, but there's no way I'm going to have him going outside. I mean, I started to get a little congested and little coffee, nothing major. It's just, you get the allergies or you get the time of change of seasons, but you don't want it to progress. So, with my son's conditions and medical history and everything, sometimes it's safer just to stay inside, especially when you're a little bit congested and coughing and we don't want a raspy cough to turn into like bronchitis or anything like that. So we're going to play it safe, I think, today. And he doesn't have a fever or anything, but you can definitely feel the congestion going through the house and things like that. And you treat it the wrong way, it can turn into something worse. So, it's going to be probably a soothing weekend of peace and quiet, but we'll see what happens. As for the charts, and I welcome everybody in here on this most holy of days, on this Saturday. Don't forget to give thanks to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Remain humble, show humility, show grace. And we want to have a community here of positivity over negativity. We're very helpful here, not hurtful. And we are trying to encourage, not discourage in this community. What I've seen overnight with XRP is interesting. We know we have a very critical $2.29 area that we have to get past to break out of the resistance tug. And then we can start pushing that $2.37 pattern resistance on the first of two tiers. However, last night we came up, and this could be viewed as a very bearish moment here, very under the radar. When we came up to this 225 overnight, that's very dangerous because the resistance levels were 225 and 229. And even though we came up to 229, that's a mid-tier pivot point at 225. And the fact we got rejected, that could be a right shoulder. And I know it's very jank, but this could technically end up being like taking the left elevator up, like a left side head to a right shoulder and down. That technically could be what happens here. Now, we're still okay, unless you see a drop below like $2.08. This early morning drop down after a rejection at 225 is fine. It can be nothing more than a consolidation down and a back test of a previous move up to show some kind of flooring so that we have a new support floor. But we have to be ultra realistic here if this were to fall through. Ultra realistic if this falls through. So right now the rejection here, it could lead you as low, and I'm not saying you would go down that far, but a rejection and a continued follow through here could lead you to downside potential to the bottom of this setup of about 18.6%. And now if you were to have a fall through, this would bring you down to the bottom of this, and this would technically be like, hey, if we took that, one of two very lucrative routes here, and, kept that inverse head and shoulders intact, even if we came down. But now you can see we've created an area where now if you were to come through like that $2 area, you're talking about $1.87 to try to find that first hold on a real back test of this breakout of the wider pattern. So, I mean, you could definitely do that. And we're starting to get into an area of concern after that rejection. Like when I woke up and seen we got rejected right at 225, I'm like, uh-oh. If there was one way I didn't want to start out this Sunday, that would be the way. And now that we've got a thinly traded weekend where you've got the West Coast waking up at 9:30, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, or Pacific Standard Time. The East Coast waking up at 9:30 a.m. And this is just the way it works. The West Coast always has to wake up a little earlier, even on the weekend. I give them a little grace on the weekend, not 9, 10 o'clock, 10:30. But this is where you see that true follow through. Is the West Coast waking up with the East Coast now? And we see the numbers and we see a rejection there, and does it make people nervous? Coming down from 225 and getting rejected there was not a good thing, especially on a thinly traded weekend. In fact, if I was to look at the worst case scenario when I woke up on Sunday or Saturday morning, assuming we didn't fall all the way through already, a rejection at 225 would have been that firm kick in the nuts. Because now we've got some work to do. As we can see, Bitcoin's down 0.75%, back down 700 points this morning. It's 94,000. But let me do the intro. We're already 5 minutes into this. So let me do the intro. We'll tie this together. We'll make sure there's no news and notes. And then I'm going to go to the farmer's market with Julie's mom here in a couple minutes after I end this. And I'm going to go look for some herbal stuff as well, because there's some herbal remedies there that I can buy. I can make my own mixtures and things like that with some fresh ingredients. So I'm very interested in going there today. I need more honey as it's running out, and that's a big part of what I use. Instead of using sugar and stuff, I just use local bee honey. And I just go to farmers markets to find it. And I found somebody I really like their stuff. So I try to do it from a holistic standpoint and away with nature. But, it doesn't always 100% work out. But with that being said, good morning. 10:06 a.m. and I apologize for the stuffiness, but we're just going to have to deal with it. It's the way the weather's been going here lately. Good morning. 10:06 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on this Saturday, April 26th, 2025. I'm XRP Future Millionaire with the side bet on XLM and Future DGB OG, and I reside in the great state of Michigan. And you'll hear the XRP, XLM, and DGB update in the intro when I want to show you all three of them, because they're my favorite three, hands down. So the one thing about XLM this morning is we came all the way up to this little cup that we've been talking about. We formed it now. I mean, I suppose you could come up a little bit higher. But now if this is meant to consolidate, you're going to have to at least come back to 27.3 and retest this. We don't want this to be a little bit of a rising channel here. Sometimes they do run out of steam. So what we want to see is continuation. If not, you've got a couple layers. You could back test 27.4. You could fall all the way back through and back test the pattern setup at 21.8. Because remember, and this is why I feel like we're more than likely going to drop here. I could be wrong. I definitely could be wrong. But after a big breakout of that descending triangle, it seems very unlikely that we're not going to get a back test of that structural breakout. And if that's the case, it's no big deal. It's not a big deal. You just come back down to about 21 cents. And if that's the way we're approaching this, I mean, that's a pretty substantial drop, but it's still not the end of the world. That's just going to be a way for them to break the backs of all the long traders right before the further move up. So we'll have to watch that very carefully this weekend. Very, very carefully, in fact. And then XLM is up 2%, as we've seen, but we see the downside potential if it topped. The upside potential is up to 52 if it played out truthfully, but that back test I see at 21.5 cents approximately after a breakout of a descending triangle. That needs to be respected. Until we break out of the area, that needs to be a respected point. So just pay attention to that possible 25% dip. And DGB is another telling sign. It could not get above this little resistance here for whatever reason. And now it's going to find itself in a spot. If it were to come back below that 960096, we could reset at 0082. Man, is it cold out here. What in the hell? And it's rainy. No wonder we're all feeling like caballos. So yeah, that's what I'm seeing this morning in these charts. So we have a very big opportunity here. Yes, we could push through, but there is a chance at a breakdown here. Bitcoin at 94,000, down about 0.75%. Did tap out at 95,851, right around 96K. Now we're looking at the support structure at 93,136, and if we have a support structure there at 93,136, we'll be okay. If we hold that, we'd be okay. It's just if we fall through here, then all of a sudden you open the door back up to a 6,000 point drop, and that's kind of what we could see happening if this bull flag doesn't play out. This bull flag ends up getting invalidated likely if it breaks 91,700. So if we're being realistic with ourselves, 91,700 is going to be this real interesting spot here where, we could find ourselves with a little bit of a drop off. Now, we do have a possibility of a nice bullish push, but we do have to hold these recent lows of the week. And that's why I find it so important to discuss what we've discussed this morning. Now, I'm going to go make sure my son's good, little sickness in the house, and I'm going to go make sure everything's going good in the house. But I wanted to make sure to come out and show that everything I talked about in this morning update, please pay attention to. Don't overlook it and don't be like, oh, this can't happen. it's impossible for us to drop 25%, or it's impossible for us to have a nice rally. It's not impossible either way. It's just we showed early signs of rejection on this Saturday morning. So have a blessed start to your day. I appreciate you giving me the time of day. Thank you for the almost 35,000 subscribers that we have now, and thank you for your support. Hashtag be better, do better if you were able to make it till the end of this video.